Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate various anime and games through their lovely ladies. If you haven't seen my previous video covering the waifu from Fate Zero, you'd best watch it now, as we'll be proceeding on to Fate Stay Night and its sequel, Hollow Ataraxia. While this video will cover lore, you can find plenty more over on the main OtakuDaiKun channel. For this outing, we'll also be praising these girls for their beauty and appeal in the narrative, and I get to show off some of my all-time favorite waifu. Let's check them out. After the brutal ending of the Fourth Holy Grail War, a fifth iteration kicks off just 10 years later, dragging in the next generation of mages as they're still in school. We're introduced to this new war through Rin Tohsaka, whose parents both perished in the previous conflict. This forced her to take over as head of the family in a tragic, premature process. As she was still a child, she reluctantly received guardianship from the sketchy priest Kire Kotomine, who taught her martial arts while she refined her family's jewel magecraft. Most mages are cold and calculating, willing to do whatever it takes to reach the root. Rin's dad was very much that kind of person, yet she never saw that side of him. As such, her primary motive for fighting in the Grail War is to uphold the Tohsaka name. She has no immediate desire for the Grail or its power. Instead, she wants to prove herself. The ritual is merely her duty, as is tending to Fuyuki City as a spiritual land. In other words, she's a kind, caring, ordinary girl who finds her good nature at odds with the harsh responsibilities thrust upon her. This has her putting on a stoic demeanor and suppressing her genuine feelings. Nevertheless, her humanity slips through the cracks in endearing ways. Much of this comes from interacting with her sister Sakura. Now that Sakura is a member of the Matou family, the two of them are supposed to ignore their history as siblings. Despite this, Rin continues to watch over Sakura in her own way, although she doesn't initially realize the horrific things the Matous are doing to her. Another point of conflict for Rin emerges regarding Shiro Emiya, a reckless classmate she secretly admires. When Shiro is killed at the war's onset, Rin saves his life by expanding the mana stored in a treasured pendant. Pitying the naive master, she teaches him the basics of the Holy Grail War before reminding him they're supposed to be enemies. Hurting Shiro is the last thing Rin wants to do, but she's pressured into fighting him out of a sense of duty. Much of this pressure comes from her own servant, Archer, who constantly points out her insecurities. For as exceptional Rin is as a mage, moments of hesitation cause her to make mistakes, such as accidentally summoning Archer instead of her desired Saber servant. Rin excels in academics, beloved by her classmates as an honor student, yet is completely inept when it comes to modern technology. Throughout the war, Rin must realize that she's her own person, and that her family's ambitions are not necessarily hers. This has her teaming up with Shiro, rescuing Sakura, and ultimately putting an end to the Fuyuki Grail Wars. That's not to say she doesn't value her magecraft, though. After graduation, she leaves Japan to attend the clock tower in London. The only things holding her back are financial, as the jewels needed for her spells are wildly expensive. Thus, she can be found caught up in various money-making schemes. In all, Rin is a stunningly sweet tsundere with impressive skills. Without a doubt, she's one of my all-time certified favorite waifu. For all the prestige she upholds, deep down, she's actually very relatable. Dare I say, defenseless. The poster child for the Fate series is our beloved King of Knights, Artoria Pendragon. She's a Saber-class heroic spirit, a legend inscribed into the planet itself for her historical and mythological significance. After all, she's the famed King Arthur, leader of the Knights of the Round Table in Camelot. She was born to bring salvation to Britain during a time of foreign invasion. Her father, Uther Pendragon, worked with his court mage Merlin to ensure she was born with the essence of the Red Dragon, one who could vanquish Vortigern and the Saxons from their land. Merlin had her raised in secrecy, until one day announcing her to the world by having her pull Caliburn, the Sword of Selection, from its stone. To that end, Artoria was trained as a king and knight, never being allowed to indulge her desires as an ordinary woman. She led her people to victory as a saintly martyr of sorts, sacrificing her own well-being for her people. This caused her to misunderstand her closest subjects, denying her child Mordred the throne, while forgiving Sir Lancelot for his affair with Lady Guinevere. As a result, she returned from an expedition in Rome to a rebellion, one which ultimately took her life. Rather, it would have, had she not called out to the planet for a chance to seek the Holy Grail. With the sacred chalice, Artoria sought a second chance at kingship to avoid the mistakes of her past and lead Britain to prosperity. In that capacity, she became a counter-guardian who could be summoned for Fuyuki's Holy Grail Wars. Her first master was Kiritsugu Emiya, whose just ideals were overshadowed by his dishonorable methods. She could never understand this man, instead getting along better with his wife Illyasviel. Even as a king, Artoria enjoyed the chance to serve Irie as a chivalrous, gentlemanly knight. In her fight for the Grail, she encountered other kings more selfish than her, who slandered her vision of what a king should be. Their harsh criticism rung true when confronting Lancelot in battle and seeing him reduced to an enraged berserker. Then, Kiritsugu betrayed her, forcing her to destroy the very Grail she sought. This ordeal broke Artoria's spirit, leading her to now seek the Grail to erase her own impact on history, to have somebody else take up the throne instead. In total contrast, Artoria is summoned to the Fifth Grail War by Kiritsugu's adopted son Shiro. His fervent desire to be a hero of justice reignites her own convictions. He convinces her to take pride in the life she led, and to use this time as a servant to finally seek her own happiness. Artoria's obsession with the Grail either has her heart in her heart, turning into a corrupted altar form, or casting away the Grail for its danger and deceit. In the latter scenario, she allows herself the life she'd been denied. Her girlish charms shine through, leading to a peaceful afterlife in Avalon, the king's promised utopia. These charms include her obsession with delicious cuisine, her embarrassment at being unable to swim, and the nuance that being a woman doesn't invalidate her strength or kingship. She's adorable, fierce, beautiful, and radiant. She stands atop the rest as one of my most certified favorites in a class of her own. This applies to both her standard and altar forms. After all, who doesn't love a badass motorcycle babe who shines brighter than her own sword? Excalibur! Fate Stay Night's third heroine is Sakura Matou, arguably the most tragic figure in the entire franchise. As I said for Fate Zero, her pedigree was both a blessing and a curse. She was born with amazing potential as a mage, but so was her sister, and only one of the siblings could carry on the Tohsaka crest. To give Sakura the opportunity to reach her full potential, Tokiomi had her adopted into the Matou family, whose bloodline had hit rock bottom. This seems perfectly reasonable until you realize how the Matou train their mages. Mainly, the Matou magic crest is transplanted through disgusting crest worms that slither their way into the body. While they can expand a mage's circuits, and even function as artificial circuits, they also feed on their host, physically and mentally. As such, Sakura was cast into the worm pit, violated through every orifice. Additionally, the family's head, Zoken, sought to use Sakura as a vessel for both the Lesser Grail and himself. Through the crestworms, he can manipulate and torment Sakura. He also merged them with fragments of the previous war's Grail, preparing her as a sacrifice, just in case she couldn't bring them victory. Needless to say, this rotted Sakura's spirit, tainting her emotions and reducing her to a cold, obedient husk. To make matters worse, the Matou's biological heir, Shinji, grew jealous over not being chosen to inherit the crest. He took out his inadequacies on her, having his way with her whenever the worms demanded a mage's seed. Poor Sakura did a decent enough job masking her trauma, and at school, she witnessed Shiro Emiya practicing the high jump in futility. At first, she resented him, envying his freedom, but eventually began to admire his tenacity. Thus, when Shiro incurred an injury, Sakura took it upon herself to visit his home and assist with household chores. This boy became her salvation, her only escape from hell. Thus, she is shocked to discover he's a master for the Fifth Grail War. Refusing to fight her beloved, Sakura instead opts to let Shinji borrow her command spells and servant Medusa. However, when Shinji fails to show any results, Zoken takes matters into his own hands, provoking Sakura's transformation as a vessel. In the form of an ominous shadow, she wanders Fuyuki City, devouring passers-by in secret. With each defeated servant, her sanity wanes, until she winds up becoming the very enemy Shiro pledged to kill. Despite this, Shiro decides to be a hero solely for her, even if it means threatening the world and betraying his childhood ideals. While Sakura resists the corrupt Grail, she finally snaps when Shinji tries to assault her one last time. She rightfully kills him in self-defense, yet also succumbs to the Grail's corruption, Angra Mainyu, walking in step with her shadow. The Heavens Feel ritual becomes a matter of reviving Angra Mainyu in the modern era. With both Artoria and Heracles corrupted to her side, she seems unstoppable. Only when Rin taps into the true magic of Kaleidoscope can she fight back, and the two sisters finally confront each other after all this time. Sakura has resented Rin for never noticing her pain. Yet, she still cares for Rin, regretting it when she nearly kills her sister. This creates an opportunity for Shiro to free her of Angra Mainyu's control, allowing her to survive as an ordinary girl. Her traumatic past can't be erased, but she can start paving the way to a brighter future. Sakura really is a sweetheart, maintaining compassion even for those who hurt her. In a way, it's liberating to see her stand up for herself, even if it means threatening the world to do so. The Rider-class servant summoned to Fuyuki's 5th Grail War happens to be Medusa, the snake-haired monster from Greek mythology. Before she became the monstrous Gorgon, however, she was first an earth goddess, alongside her older sisters Stheno and Uriel. The three of them were supposed to embody the yearning of the hearts of men, a trio of perfect idols. This meant that they would remain eternally young, and yet Medusa was defective in that regard, getting older over time. Regardless, the goddess Athena looked upon the three of them with envy. Jealous of their beauty, she decided to curse Medusa exclusively. Rather than a beautiful idol, Medusa would instead grow into a violent beast with snakes for hair. Suddenly, the same people who once worshipped her had her exiled to the Shapeless Isle. Out of compassion, her otherwise sadistic sisters chose to accompany Medusa in her banishment, leading people to think that they had been captured. Thus, soldiers would venture to the island hoping to slay Medusa, while she, in turn, fought these invaders to protect her sisters. Sadly, she could not resist her curse forever, and eventually, she completed her transformation into the Gorgon and devoured her beloved siblings. Only after being slain by the hero Perseus could Medusa's nightmare truly end. As a heroic spirit, Medusa is summoned by the mage Sakura Matou. She immediately feels the need to protect her master from being abused and exploited by the Matou family. By her master's request, however, Medusa tolerates serving under Sakura's brother Shinji instead, subsisting off of artificial command spells. In combat, she makes use of her most iconic trait, the Mystic Eyes of Petrification, which turn her enemies into stone. That said, her noble phantasm is why she qualifies as a rider. Using the golden bridle Bellerophon, Medusa takes reign over Pegasus, the flying mount that sprung from her own headless neck in legend. Throughout the Grail War, Medusa is caught between her desire to obey Sakura and her desire to do what she believes is best for Sakura. She initially fights for Shinji so that Sakura won't have to bear the burden of fighting her crush, Shiro. Later, however, Medusa's willing to do whatever it takes to liberate Sakura from the Grail's corruption. Ultimately, Medusa is a tragic figure who, despite her hardships in life, continues to do the right thing and protect those dear to her. While it's fucked up what Athena did to Medusa, I can certainly understand why she'd be jealous. Technically, Sakura was never supposed to be a Grail vessel. That role lies primarily with Illyasviel Von Einzbern, daughter of Kiritsugu Emiya and her mom Illyasviel. The Einzberns planned to claim victory in the Fourth War, but when that fell through, they immediately began prepping Ilya for the next war. This was a brutally painful process, made all the worse by her confusion and isolation. Kiritsugu rejected the Grail after learning of its corruption. He had no intention of abandoning his daughter, yet the Einzberns exiled him for his failure, preventing him from ever seeing Ilya again. he had no choice but to move on, causing her to believe he'd simply given up on her. At the same time, she was haunted by visions of her mother, getting a glimpse at Angra Mainyu's corruption without context. Even through all these factors, Ilya remained stoic, stepping up as both the Grail War's vessel as well as one of its masters. Fueled by anger and resentment, she summoned the berserker Heracles as her servant. She tried to control him through force, but the strain from doing so tugged at her life. Thus, when the Einzberns cast her out into the woods to fend for herself, she could do nothing as wolves tore at her flesh. In this moment of vulnerability, Heracles finally responded, rescuing her through a destructive tirade. From this moment onward, Ilya began to see Heracles as a father figure, someone who could protect her when nobody else did. Because Shiro Emiya is Kiritsugu's adopted son, Ilya has conflicted feelings about him. On one hand, she had a brother she could meet, but on the other, she hated him, fearing he was her replacement. As such, she shows no mercy when first encountering him in the war. She either wants to possess him or tear him asunder. However, as she learns more about what actually happened in the Fourth War, Ilya becomes more understanding. When Heracles is defeated in battle, she accepts her loss, admitting that no other servant would make her happy. Unfortunately, this makes her nothing more than a tool for the war, a victim of fate depending on how things progress. Knowing her life will be cut short either way, she uses what time she has left to aid Shiro, saving his life by completing the Heavensfeel ritual, in turn materializing his soul. In becoming one with the Grail, Ilya is relieved to reunite with her mom, offering both of them a bittersweet salvation. Overall, Ilya is a broken girl who understandably acts out due to all the pain she's endured. While she's technically older than Shiro, it's great to see her experience with him the childhood she was denied. It's safe to say we all want her to be happy. Being an Einzbern homunculus sucks. You can wind up like Ilya, forced to bear a tremendous burden, or you can be labeled defective, discarded among your kin as a broken doll. Our next two waifu, Sella and Leysritt, fall somewhere between the two extremes. They serve as Ilya's bodyguards and caretakers, traveling alongside her from Germany to Fuyuki for the Fifth Grail War. Sella is the more mature and complete among them. Despite being an impressive product of alchemy, she too is set to be scrapped until being salvaged as Ilya's teacher. She's well-spoken, though that often means treating others harshly. This is simply a product of her protectiveness. Either way, this has her spending more time around plants and animals than people. Leysritt is an odd case. Rather than social etiquette, she was designed to prioritize combat, resulting in her speech and mannerisms being incomplete. She too cares for Ilya in her own way, and is prepared to die for her sake. In fact, this is her destiny. To complete the Heavensfeel ritual, Ilya must confront the Greater Grail wearing the Dress of Heaven, the Einzbern family's mystic code. The dress is meant to be transmuted from the very mana comprising Leysritt. Thus, she will either die as a sacrifice to make the dress, or fall in battle trying to protect Ilya. I enjoy being able to see these two maids living in more peaceful times, like in today's menu for the Emiya family or Hollow Ataraxia. The Fifth Grail War's caster servant is Medea, the princess of Colchis, branded in legend as a grim witch. Her poor reputation comes from the slander and influence of arrogant men. When she was alive, she became a talented mage by studying under her aunt Circe. She was happy in her homeland, yet this all changed when Jason of the Argonauts sailed to her island seeking the Golden Fleece. When Medea's father refused to hand over the fleece, the goddess Aphrodite chose to persuade him in a less direct fashion. To support Jason, Aphrodite cast a spell on Medea, forcing her to fall head over heels for him. Against her will, she aided Jason in stealing the fleece and attacking her own family in the process. She escaped with Jason after slicing her brother to pieces and scattering him across the ocean. Despite fearing Medea, Jason relied on her magecraft to improve his standing before ultimately abandoning her. In the end, she murdered and even conjured wicked spells for his sake, only to be kicked to the curb in a foreign land. She never could make it back to Colchis, and her wish upon the Grail is to finally return home. Unfortunately, her master, Atram Galiasta, saw her as equally disposable. He sought her for the chance to control a dragon, but after realizing she couldn't do so, he and his harem of gorgeous babes mocked her. Just to put it out there, these girls are all extremely beautiful waifu in their own right. It's too bad they serve such a douchebag. Atram underestimated Medea, trying to discard her as a vile, untrustworthy witch. Luckily, she outsmarted him, earning the chance to find a different master. She nearly perished from a lack of mana until meeting a man named Soichiro Kuzuki. He offered to be her master and help her achieve her dream by winning the Grail War. It's ironic how a deadly assassin treats her better than anyone else in her life. Her desire to love him becomes just as important as the Grail, yet she comes to terms with this too little too late. She and Kuzuki are both struck down in a literal rain of swords, only confessing their feelings right before death. How wonderful then that works like Carnival Phantasm show Medea and Kuzuki happy in other timelines. It's worth noting that, for as much as she loves him, she's also a total Saber fetishist. While trying to convert Artoria to her side, she dresses the King of Knights up in a revealing dress. It's implied that Medea has a whole collection of handmade Artoria figures, so while she's not one of my personal favorites, I can appreciate how she and I have the same taste in waifu. Not everyone in Fate's Stay Night is a participant in the war. Such is the case for Ayako Mitsuzuri, captain of Homurahara Academy's archery club. She's a lovely tomboy who competes with Rin to see who can get a boyfriend first. Her stoic attitude is mainly part of an image she projects, as her more feminine traits seem to send a different message. This has her coming off more as a big sister to the guys she likes. To get her emotional fix, then, she plays otome video games in secret, as her parents want her to focus solely on martial arts. Since Shinji Matou is such a prick, Ayako has to confront him at the dojo. In an act of petty revenge, Shinji has Medusa suck Ayako's blood to replenish mana. While Ayako makes it out of this okay, it appears Medusa has developed a fondness for her. Ayako's into older men though, so Medusa's infatuation comes off as creepy. Overall, she's a rather unambitious character, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Homurahara's track and field team sports 3 more waifu: Kane Himuro, Kaede Makidera, and Yukika Saegusa. This trio of nosy goofballs are barely part of the main story, getting most of their development from Hollow Ataraxia. Of them, Kane is the reserved one, both intelligent and creative. Her dad is actually the mayor of Fuyuki City. Yukika is gentle by comparison, serving as the track team's manager instead of one of its athletes. She sucks at sports, and only joined the team by being pressured into it. Her family's poor, but she develops tremendous compassion through taking care of her younger siblings. Makidera's the track team's best sprinter, nicknamed the Black Panther of Homura. Apparently, she comes from a pirate ancestry, which might explain her energy and obnoxious attitude. To me, none of these girls are particularly special, but I suppose they do a nice job making the school feel real and lived in. Makidera's not the only girl at Homurahara with a feline nickname. The school's English teacher, Taiga Fujimura, has a reputation as the Tiger of Fuyuki due to being a star kendo fighter during her student years. Back then, she dominated the competition, but not in official tournaments, as she was disqualified for keeping a tiger strap on her shinai. Perhaps this is why she hates being called Tiger by her students. It's no surprise, given her martial arts background, that Taiga supervises the archery club. This has her waking up early for school, and yet somehow, she's always on the verge of being late, storming the classroom at the last possible second. Taiga's family dominates Fuyuki as a wealthy Yakuza group. They hooked Kiritsugu up with a house in town, which is when Taiga first met him. She stepped in as a guardian for Shiro, and over time, developed a crush for Kiritsugu. She always hoped he would take her on one of his outings, but that sentiment was never reciprocated. Instead, after he died, she became Shiro's permanent guardian. While she can be a responsible adult when she wants to, most of the time, she's reliant on the food Shiro and Sakura make for her. At least she's very protective of Shiro, though this makes it difficult for other girls to come into his life. As both a parent and teacher, she feels the need to make sure he isn't doing anything undecent. Rin only gets to live at the Emiya estate after besting Taiga through diplomacy, basically outsmarting her. As for Saber, she asserts her dominance through sparring in kendo. It's pretty clear Taiga would rather see Shiro and Sakura hook up, as she occasionally acts as a wingman to their timid romance. In addition to teaching her students English, Taiga joins Ilya in hosting the Tiger Dojo, a comedy series that helps guide players through Fate Stay Night's visual novel. Taiga makes for awesome comic relief, but I also appreciate when she actually takes things seriously. One of Taiga's high school classmates was a girl named Otoko Hotaruzuka. The two of them have kept in touch since graduation, which isn't too crazy given how they still live in Fuyuki. Specifically, Otoko's father owns a liquor store/pub named Copenhagen, and she helps out with the family business. Since Otoko sounds like the Japanese word for man, she instead prefers to go by her nickname Neko, which is appropriate for her cat-like appearance. Shiro sometimes works at Copenhagen part-time, with Neko as his boss. I would be remiss not to mention Rin's eternal rival, Luviagelita Edelfelt. Both the Edelfelts and Tohsakas share a common ancestry studying jewel magecraft. Over the years, however, Luvia's riches have only grown, while Rin's have plummeted. To that end, Luvia feels herself superior, referring to Rin as a wild ape. This is ironic, given how Luvia's family is sometimes regarded as hyenas, for how they pilfer the techniques from other struggling mage bloodlines. Both Rin and Luvia met when moving to London. Arrogantly, Luvia tried to reserve the entire top floor of the clock tower's Norwich dorm, getting into a fight when Rin simply requested a single room for herself. The ensuing chaos got both girls kicked out of the dorms entirely. Refusing to live in a boarding house, Luvia then purchased an entire mansion. Their rivalry only deepens when Shiro seeks out a job and winds up as Luvia's butler. Whenever she refers to him as her precious Shiro, Rin cringes, leading to even more fights. Rin aside, Luvia is a proud student of Waver Velvet, aka Lord Elmaloy II. It is via Waver that Luvia gets most of her screen time. I just couldn't help but include her here, though. While Rin learned martial arts from Kirei Kotomine, it appears Luvia has a penchant for wrestling. Since modern mages need more than just spells to defend themselves, Luvia can be surprisingly aggressive when grappling her foes. With enough time, her rivalry with Rin turns into a reluctant, yet effective partnership. Or at least it could, if they'd only stop reaching for each other's throats for a damn second. Red versus blue really is the name of the game. Still, we do get to see them work together in Prisma Ilya and the adventures of Lord Elmaloy II. The story of Fate Hollow Ataraxia centers around Bazett Fraga McRemitz, a master who was supposed to participate in the Fifth Holy Grail War, but was incapacitated before the fighting even started. She grew up in Ireland to an old mage family no longer paired with the Mages Association. Not wanting her lineage to remain in the shadows, Bazett tried to rejoin the association, only to be rejected due to internal politics at the clock tower. Not letting this get her down, she found her place as one of the association's enforcers, a group of mages who hunt down other mages at the clock tower's behest. She fights primarily by strengthening her body for physical attacks. Her family's secret weapon is Fragarock, a noble phantasm that rewrites causality so that it always strikes first. In effect, it reverses an opponent's attack back on them, gaining strength proportional to what is used against it. This has Bazett put herself at risk as bait to lure naive opponents into hurting themselves. To an extent, enforcers bear a similar burden to church executors, and it's in this capacity that Bazett met Kirei Kotomine. After working together on missions, she placed in him a false sense of trust, such that when she was chosen to fight for the clock tower in Fuyuki's Fifth War, Kirei took the chance to steal her command spells. The moment she summoned Ireland's Child of Light, Ku Hullen, Kirei severed her arm and left her to die. She only survives because the Grail, despite its corruption, takes pity on her and offers her a second chance to live. Essentially, she and the war's other participants are caught up in a time loop, living through a recreation of the war in perpetuity. Only by realizing this and agreeing to face reality can Bazett truly set herself free. For as independent as she can be, Bazett actually feels lonely. She looked forward to the Grail War for the chance to meet Ku, as his legend inspired her. Beyond that, she feels like an outsider to the world, supporting herself out of necessity. I won't lie, I've always had a thing for fist fighters like her, and she's definitely another certified favorite. It's been a real treat playing as her in Fate Grand Order and the fighting game Unlimited Codes. Bazett never would have survived her amputation without the help of Caren Hortensia, a church priestess sent to replace her own father, Kirei. I mentioned this in my Zero Waifu Files, but Karen's mother, Claudia, stabbed herself in a failed attempt to prove Kirei's capacity for love. Given how that was a bust, it's no surprise then that Kirei would refuse to care for his own daughter, instead giving her up to Claudia's relatives. Specifically, Caren was placed in the custody of a priest who, honestly, didn't even like her. The priest thought Claudia was a sinner for bearing a child out of wedlock. I guess Kirei didn't get a ring until later. Caren, then, was seen as unfit as a child of God. To prevent her from becoming wicked, she wasn't given a proper education, not until the time of her baptism. Then, when stigmata appeared all over her body, the priest handed Caren over to the Holy Church, where she finally had a chance to grow intellectually. That said, the church only wanted her because of that stigmata, a sign that she had a masochistic spiritualist constitution. At great pain to herself, Karen's body reacts to the presence of demonic activity, making her a detector for exorcists. When her father dies, Caren gains the freedom to take over his position at Fuyuki Church. In this capacity, she finds Bazett's wounded body and nurses it back to health. Not affected by the Grail's time loop, she has the opportunity to confront Angra Mainyu and form a morbid relationship with him. She provokes him into taking her virginity, and then tries to encourage him to impregnate her. Despite never actually meeting her father, she seems to retain some of his morbid curiosity, wondering what it would be like for a priest to bear the offspring of all the world's evils. Luckily, she's not her father, and genuinely wants to help others, even at her own expense. She just goes about it with a sadistic personality. With that, I've covered 17 different waifu from Fate Stay Night. I know I talk about this series all the time, but hopefully you've learned some new things and gained an appreciation for all these wonderful women. If you enjoyed this, consider watching my Waifu Files on Kara no Kyokai. You can find it, as well as so many other great episodes, in the official Waifu Files playlist. Also, let me know which anime or games you'd like to see in a future video. Until next time, celebrate your fandom!
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Otaku Mom, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, Olympian Doll, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Sal Soto, Tristan Riggin, Major, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Dionysus, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X 77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.